Hello there. What is going on, everybody? Big news from major force in the board game industry, CMON, or otherwise known as Cool Mini or Not, or at one point briefly CMON, but I've always just called them CMON. They have been going through some stuff, and they have unloaded their biggest property over to Asmodee. We're going to talk about this in today's video. This is pretty massive and could mean bad news for CMON and potentially good news for Asmodee, potentially good news for a lot of you guys, depending on how things develop. There's no big secret that tariffs have been causing a lot of problems in the board game industry with massive price hikes on goods coming in from China, as where pretty much all board games are made. This has impacted CMON quite a bit, and we've talked about this before, how they've ceased all Kickstarter funding. All new Kickstarters they've only been saying we're going to deliver existing Kickstarters, and this is something that they've been delivering on. I know some people who've just recently got some of the Zombicide White Death was one that was being delivered currently. A lot of people have just recently got that or are getting it as we speak. So they're still in the fulfillment department, but they're being hit with massive tariffs from this. They were 140 plus, and now they're down to about 30%, which is still extremely high, and for a lot of companies not sustainable to have an additional 30% price hike on your goods coming in for the declared value. And it's unstable because we don't know how long this is going to go for. It could potentially go up more, it could come down. It is a very unstable market, and it's very hard for people to create things and price them appropriately when you have no idea what you're going to have to pay for them when they finally come in. And because it can be so crazy, it's led to some companies closing their doors, and that seems like that's happening with CMON. They've had layoffs. They've announced that they're not going to be doing any more board games, and then recently, or any more Kickstarters. We had an announcement from them that said that they're going to have a new homes for some of their great games, games like Blood Rage. Games like Rising Sun, which is one of my all-time favorite games. They've been pushing some of these. They've also said that there's going to be another game that is also going to be changing hands, but they didn't say which license that was quite just yet. But with this shedding of like the Blood Rage and the Rising Sun and that whole family of games, it did seem like there was going to be a major impact for CMON. And we just got word that their biggest game ever, Zombicide, has moved over to Asmodee. They've sold off the rights to their most recognizable and most profitable game. This is the game that put CMON on the map. This is the game that kind of made them. This was one of the games that kind of made Kickstarter, I guess you could say. I mean, I think this was the first board game to really like do crazy good on Kickstarter, and I think I think CMON had not just like one of the best games of all time, but I think they've had most of the best games of all time on Kickstarter. Like the number of games of board games that have made over $1 million is a very small list, and most of them are CMON games. So I'm saying that off of memory. I know Awakened Realms had quite a few that did really well before they moved over to GameFound as well. But I'm pretty sure if you look at that list, it's mostly going to be CMON. They've kind of pioneered this entire industry of crowdfunding board games and massively board games with a ton of stuff. And it all goes back to Zombicide. They kind of capitalized on the whole fear of missing out, that FOMO, with having like limited time special, heroes that you could only get on this Kickstarter, and then you can never get again. And then people kind of caught on to that, and the FOMO drove people wild, and then they just added more and more and more. I mean, I've spent lots on various Zombicide Kickstarters over the years. So the fact that they're selling this off to Asmodee is a massive indication that they're facing some serious problems. I wouldn't, I don't want to speculate too much, but I mean, it's hard not to when you see a company selling off their most recognizable. This would be like Nintendo selling Mario or something like that. It's that big of a deal. So there's some things about this. Apparently, it's being reported that this licensing deal, or that this sale, doesn't include licenses that were specifically set up for Marvel Zombies and DC's version of Deceased. Those are both Zombicide games, but those are staying to be finished and managed by CMON. So that's not, it's not going to impact those as much. But it probably does mean, I mean, considering there are other news that they're, really not doing any more Kickstarters, that I wouldn't expect a whole lot more for those particular titles from CMON outside of just, any remaining fulfillment that happens and potential customer service, replacement parts, FAQ, errata, things like that. But if you are an Asmodee company, then this is probably a pretty good deal for Asmodee because this game can make a lot of money. It's a fun cooperative game. It's a silly fun. It's rules light. It's very beginner friendly. I have taught this to groups of people who have not played board games, and they've loved it. They have had a great time because it's a system that is fully cooperative. It's a system that allows everyone to work together and to give you advice. And, well, yeah, you should probably do this. I have no idea what I'm doing. Well, you should go ahead and open that door and search in that room. Oh, you probably want to attack these zombies. Here, just roll these dice. We'll help you figure it out. So it has that aspect to it, but it's also a great beer and pretzels game, and it's also a great game that's customizable. It's very easy to tweak and add certain rules, take away certain rules. I've played this with my kids quite a bit. One of the things my kids used to homebrew with Zombicide was they would take their Plants vs. Zombies action figures from the game Plants vs. Zombies, and they would put those on the board, swap out miniatures, and it's like, now we're playing Plants vs. Zombicide. They would do all kinds of stuff like that. Zombicide also had a ton of crossovers, which does make me think there's going to be extra value in those crossovers because licenses that Asmodee does not have the rights to will probably not be reproduced in their versions of, in continuing reprints and stuff of Zombicide. So I don't think we're going to get the cast of The Big Bang Theory remade in Asmodee's Zombicide. I don't think we're going to get, all of that. I don't know if we'll get reprints of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I don't know if we'll get reprints of Thundercats, things like that, which is a bummer because I had the Thundercats and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but I lost one of the boxes. I don't know what happened to it. I've looked all over. I cannot find it. And it's like, I don't think it was stolen because why would you come in and steal just one of two boxes of Ninja Turtles and not take the other one, right? So I gotta believe that it was just falling behind something. It's driving me crazy. But yeah, I would wager that there's probably a lot of things that are going to be potentially not reprinted under Asmodee. They did like Donald Trump and Barack Obama. They did a lot of other celebrity likenesses. I would imagine those things are probably not going to be remade under Asmodee. But there is one prediction that I do have that Asmodee will probably do very, very soon if they're not working on already. Star Wars Zombies. Of course they're going to do a Star Wars Zombicide. I feel like this practically writes itself, and I don't think that it would be very hard at all to make it work. Star Wars Zombies has always been a thing. There's always been tons of content for something like this. Not just with regular zombies, but you look at Ahsoka Season 1 and all of the Night Sister magic, and I mean, Star Wars has always had zombies. The game writes itself. You've got Night Sisters, you've got zombies, you can put a Rancor in here as like the big bad, right? You can do all of that cool stuff. Again, Stormtrooper zombies can be your regular, you can have tons and tons and tons of Stormtrooper zombies. Of course, that easily works out. There's also stuff to kind of branch out of normal versions of this and have expansions that kind of go into the High Republic. They had these swampy tree monsters called the Drengir, which were carnivorous plants that would attack people, and then like that you could do a whole version of that if you really went deep into it. But I don't know if they'll have to go that deep. I don't know if they'll go that deep right away. I also think that this means Asmodee doesn't usually do Kickstarters. I don't think that we'll see future versions of Zombicide kind of go up on the Kickstarter route. I'll be really interested to see if Asmodee does that. I don't think they would do that, but if Asmodee were ever thinking about kind of taking a studio like Atomic Mass Games or Days of Wonder or whoever might do something like this, Fantasy Flight, again, I don't see Fantasy Flight doing it. I could see Atomic Mass kind of doing it because it's a simple enough system. I don't think it's going to require a whole lot of development time to just say, hey, let's do Zombicide with a Star Wars skin. Okay, cool. You have to sculpt new miniatures, but since these are also usually full pieces, like Zombicide has always been a play it straight out of the box game, it might make sense for like Z-Man games or somebody else who's already done like unpainted single piece, like with the way they did Star Wars Pandemic, the Clone Wars Pandemic. I could see Z-Man games taking over something like this. Again, it's going to be probably one of those Asmodee studios that continues development of Zombicide. I definitely expect them to apply the Star Wars license to it. It just seems like a given. And because, the rules have always been so basic and similar, it's been very easy to mix and match anything. So your old Zombicide sets, I imagine, will probably be able to work with all of this. So, again, that's why I said it's like this could be bad and good depending on, what your goals are. If you really wanted to see Star Wars Zombicide, it could be good for you. If you were one of those people who was laid off, then it's not good for you. And that does think it's not good for the board game industry as a whole, for like one person just to control all the board games, and it's starting to seem like Asmodee is gobbling up everybody. That has its it has its advantages in some ways, but has a lot of disadvantages for the wider board game community. And so I was really enjoyed just seeing what CMON brought to the table, because they've made some of my favorite games ever. And so this is Bittersweet. Again, it's got its pros and its cons, but I am going to be eagerly awaiting to see that first expansion, or that first kind of run through Zombicide. I do think the very first thing that they'll do will probably be a basic re-release of Zombicide, probably with an Asmodee logo or whichever studio ends up making it. But not long after that, I think we're, in addition to like reprints and maybe some things that were, your Deadeye Walkers and things like that, because I'm a big fan of the medieval version. Maybe we'll, again, I think we're going to see Star Wars show up in Zombicide. I don't know if we'll see, again, because like Asmodee also has a Marvel license, but I don't think they will be able to do, the Marvel version that CMON is doing, but they may be able to do a different version that has, I don't know, they might not be able to. Marvel might not let them have two competing games, or maybe there'll be amount of time. Maybe you have to wait 5-10 years in between. I'm sure this is a title that can exist for another 10 years with expansions. Again, this game that doesn't need expansions. It's fun to play all by itself. But expansions work very, very well because you can mix and match and add just whatever you want. It's honestly a really good fit for Asmodee. It does fit their kind of, new player-friendly style game for a lot of their studios. Asmodee has like games ranging from like super hardcore to super beginner-friendly, and I think Zombicide leans way more towards the beginner-friendly style of games while still being really fun for Beer and Pretzels game for veterans as well. So really great game, and it's a shame that CMON lost it, because this is what kind of put them on the map. It doesn't really bode well for CMON, and I'm really curious what you guys think. Have you guys ever played Zombicide before? Is that something that you guys were into? Again, it's one of the games that I first started playing. I think it was the first board game that I ever bought after I picked up X-Wing, and it was the first modern board game that I ever picked up. Not counting things like Monopoly and stuff like that. But this one is pretty wild. I'd love to hear what you guys think. We are still doing that $25 Amazon gift card giveaway, so make sure you're subscribed, leave a comment, and that'll enter you to win the $25 Amazon gift card giveaway. That's running for about 2 weeks, and we'll announce the winner at the end of one of my videos. So you just got to be a subscriber and leave a comment. Let me know if you've ever played Zombicide, and if so, what would be one of those licenses, or what is something that you would expect to come next to Zombicide under the Asmodee umbrella that CMON didn't do? Because I think it's Star Wars. You can agree with me, or you can add more. What else do you think they might do with a Star Wars Zombicide? Do you think maybe they could even do a space version of it, like you're a single X-Wing and you TIE fighters just keep swarming at you? I tried to do something like that a long time ago. It was one of my early videos. It was not the best video ever, but I did an X-Wing version of Zombicide. I should see if I can find it. If you can find it, tag me in it or something. I've done a lot of videos, way too many videos. All right, I'm going to wrap this up. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Big thanks to my patrons. You guys are amazing and help make this whole channel possible. I will talk to you later. May the Force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes. And always wash your socks.